the second webinar here in the buzzumi series. Today we have the privilege to spend some time with Andrew Sell, who is the founder and chief hipcycler of Hipcycle. And Hipcycle is a brand new business, just launched back in October of this year. Just had a very exciting profile written up in the New York Times, and it's with great pleasure that I'm able to introduce you to Andrew. Thanks for spending some time with us today. What does Hipcycle do?
Well, Dan, thanks so much for having me. Great to be here. Hipcycle is an online e-commerce website for upcycled products. And upcycling, while it's been around for a long time, the word may not be familiar to a lot of people. Upcycling is basically the process of taking materials that can't easily be recycled and turning them into new products, or alternative, taking things that can be cycled and applying less energy to them to make them into a new product. A good example would be glassware, turning wine bottles directly into glassware by cutting the tops off rather than going through the traditional recycling process.
So the idea is I take a product which still is kind of held together, it's still in decent shape, something that might have been recycled, or I guess worst case, have been thrown away and gone to landfill, and you turn it into a new product.
Absolutely correct. And we actually, one of the ways you can search for products on our site is by material. You know, we think it's kind of interesting to know where your products come from. A lot of what you see on our site is wood, metal, glass, plastic that's been turned directly into new products from something which otherwise would have been disposed of.
Got it. And so I guess when you think about it, people are obviously becoming much more aware about the ways that they produce, and household garbage and garbage from from businesses as well. People are becoming much more aware of it. But how do you think people feel about using things which are kind of used already? I mean, is an upcycled product the same as kind of going to a thrift store? Do you think it has a stigma attached to it to buy an upcycled product, or how do people feel about these kind of purchases?
It's a great question. Whether or not somebody is reusing something by getting something out of a garage sale or a thrift store, or upcycling something by turning it into something new, doesn't really matter a whole lot. From our point of view, one of our missions as a company is to divert materials from landfills. So whatever does that, it's good with us. But you make a great point, to that. To your message about is it used as garbage, will people want to be part of it? Our first goal with every product that we sell on Hipcycle is that it needs to be as attractive and as durable and price competitive with traditional products. So the first thing someone doesn't think of is, oh, this is a green product, I should buy it because it makes me feel better about the environment. I should buy it because it's attractive, it's something that I need. So we want to make sure that we hit those buttons first, and really the environmental message second.
Yeah, one thing that I like, obviously I've spent some time on your site, and I think one of the things that I like a lot is this idea that you're focused on both the quality of the product and also on the price point. I think, as somebody who is certainly concerned about the environment, and certainly made work, in my own life to try to change how I live and how my family lives to be increasingly responsible about these things. One of the things that you're often hit with is that to live in a way that's more ecologically responsible often costs you more. So I do things like when I travel, I offset the carbon of my flights, and essentially that's just a tax that I pay. Right? It's an extra cost. And if you try to buy fair trade or organic or kind of soil association friendly, produce, often you pay, premium, and often not a little premium. Sometimes you're paying a 2 or 3x premium. So how are you able to do it, and what's your kind of ethos about it?
Yeah, you do see that there is a lot of correlation to the fluctuations in the economy as it relates to green products, typically if they are more expensive. A great example would be the Clorox Greenworks products, for example. In the New York Times earlier this year, that brand, several years, 2000, was running at about $100 million in sales a year, but now it's running at more like $60 million a year. And the reason for that, among other reasons, is that it's more expensive. To buy a Greenworks glass cleaner product is going to cost you 30 or 40 more cents than the equivalent bottle of Windex, the traditional product. And people won't make those buying decisions when the economy's not as good and they have greater competition for their discretionary dollars. So we want to make sure that we've reached beyond, that consumer that will pay more and try to reach folks that, want to be part of it but can't pay more. So to your point, we're not going to be in the business of looking for things that are significantly more expensive. We want to be in the same area. You'd like to think that the manufacturing process is, the cost of goods sold is a little cheaper. We're finding materials to reuse again. That's not always the case because some of the efficiencies in manufacturing aren't there. But right now, with a few exceptions, there's some neat things on the site that are kind of pricey. But by and large, we want to find things that hit that point. And not everything in the upcycling industry is there from a price perspective.
One of the things that I think is interesting, if you look at the, kind of organic foods business, it started very much as a kind of farm-to-table process. It started with farmers markets and people wanting to be in touch with the producers and to know the person who made the cheese and maybe, even have a chance to visit farm where the cows or the goats lived that produced the milk that made the cheese. And so part of the organic food movement was, to some extent about health, of course, but it was also about, being connected to producers. And I would imagine that the upcycling industry, you have that opportunity as well. That these are kind of, when I look at the products on your site, many of them seem to be quite artisanal products. They're using recycled or upcycled materials, but they are materials which are probably in relative, short supply. And so there's a kind of a crafted, artisanal aspect to them. I guess the question I have is, do you think that over time, in the same way that Whole Foods stepped into the farmer market space and became a multi-billion-dollar grocery business around organic, back to the farm, but via stock exchange, do you think that in the upcycled products industry, the same sort of thing is going to happen, where we're going to see a movement from small, handcrafted people making upcycled products out of materials that they scavenge themselves, in their passion? Are we going to see $100 million, billion-dollar companies that produce products from, say, old glass bottles, something you have on your site today?
Yeah, no, it's a great question because the industry right now, and this has been surprising to some people, but I do consider upcycling to be an industry, right? But it's quite small. It is quite fragmented, kind of that cottage industry you may have described in the early days of the organic farming movement. But it's growing very quickly. So there are great characteristics to start a new business in. So that's one reason why we're so excited about Hipcycle. If it's turned into something that becomes mainstream, that's kind of a way to synthesize what you said. Yeah, I certainly hope so. Again, the end goal at the end of the day is to divert waste from landfills. And if we have major companies producing in scale and in volume products that are attractive and desirable and affordable to consumers, that's a great thing. You're already starting to see that in a couple of different areas. For example, you see Crate and Barrel, for example, a major retailer here in the U.S., is offering furniture made from reclaimed wood. They're not using the word upcycled a whole lot, a little bit they are here and there, but they're offering things that they're selling at, their standard price points, several $100s a piece of furniture, if not more. And you also see a great company in our industry is a company called TerraCycle, which is also based here in New Jersey, which has done a great job of not only working with consumer packaged goods companies to collect the waste from their products, but also to work with big box retailers like Target and Walmart and Home Depot to sell the products that TerraCycle makes. So if it goes beyond an artisanal level to something that is more broad-based to consumers, I think that's a good thing. But at the same time, at least where Hipcycle is in its phase of development, the fact that these products are unique and they are beautiful and they are handcrafted in many cases, there's a story to those stories. Where did the products come from? Who made this? Why was it made? What was the inspiration for it? Why might
it's a product with a history, a product with
absolutely
with a backstory.
And the marketing message.
For sure. I guess when I look at Hipcycle and also if we recognize that, as you say, it's still kind of a cottage industry. Many of the products are made by artisanal makers, people who are doing this stuff maybe on the side. Maybe it's a full-time job for them, or maybe it's very small collectives of people, 3 or 4 person companies. Could you imagine doing kind of webinars on Hipcycle to help people learn how to upcycle products on their own? I guess, from a marketing message, obviously, you're an e-commerce site, you want to make money selling products, but you also seem to have a strong message and a strong mission. Do you think that would be interesting? Again, give people a chance, even if they're in remote geographies, to meet the makers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's disingenuous to say upcycling is only cool and valid if you buy it from Hipcycle. The point is, what can you do in your daily life to reduce the waste that you create as a person, as a family, as a household? We actually do some of that now on our blog. We have how-to, do-it-yourselves for how to upcycle various things. Right. And if we can get to a point where we take that to the next level and teach people how to upcycle and make things and reduce waste, that's even better. Part of what's great about this industry has a very passionate community of people who are either passionate from a crafting perspective or from an environmental perspective or from this beautiful products perspective. So one thing with social media, we've done a lot to try to be part of that conversation, and we want to do more in the future, be it training videos, webinars, things like that, to really try to connect with our customer base, but just with the industry as a whole.
Well, look, we'd love to be part of the journey with you. We think it'd be terrific to help fuel that education around the world, so that people can learn best practices for people who are hipcycling or upcycling anywhere they are around the world, from Indonesia to exotic New Jersey. We'd love to be part of that. Well, look, for everybody who's taken some time to listen today, we really appreciate it. Obviously, it's wonderful that you the site, Andrew, in October. We're entering the holiday season here with a vengeance, and I hope that our viewers will certainly give Hipcycle.com a try as a site for holiday gifts, which are beautifully made, beautiful to look at, and as you say, have a story with them and a message and a mission. Thank you very much for the time today, Andrew. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan.